Sometimes we think that life is about arriving somewhere, reaching a goal, becoming a certain version of ourselves. But over time, I've come to realize that many times life feels less like a destination and more like a pilgrimage. People who appear, people who leave, places that changes, seasons, goodbyes, lessons, and us walking through all of it, trying to understand what to do with everything we feel. Welcome to Sin Manual, No Playbook, a space where there are no perfect formulas and no step by step paths. Here, we talk about life as it is, with doubts, with mistakes, with moments of clarity, and others where we are in the middle just trying to understand what's next. This isn't a podcast to tell you what to do, it's a space to question, to feel, and maybe find your own answers, because at the end, no one gave us a manual, and still, we keep moving forward. All right, now we're ready to go. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about the people who pass through our lives and how some of them, even if they don't stay very long, leave something behind that is enormous, that is great, that is big. And sometimes they don't even realize it. It can be a coworker, a partner, a friend, someone you met while traveling, or maybe just a conversation that arrived at exactly the right moment. And years later, you still remember something that person showed you. That has happened to me many times, especially with people I've worked with, because through them, I ended up learning a lot, not only about leadership, but also about humanity, about how I want to treat people, how I want to listen, how I want to support others. And also, it's very important for me, how I never want to make someone feel. Because there are people we remember for years simply because of how they made us feel, good or bad. And that applies for everything: work, relationships, friendships, partners, family. Sometimes we don't remember exactly what someone said, but we do remember how we felt around that person. And maybe that's why I try more and more to be a positive experience in people's lives. Not perfect, because that's impossible, but human. And while thinking about that, I found myself wondering something, because just as there are people who left something in us, we are also passing through someone else's life. And maybe it's worth stopping for a moment and asking ourselves, am I aware of how much I can influence another person's life just by the way I live? Are you aware of how much you can impact on other people's life simply by the way you live? And also has a lot to do with our environment, the conversations we hear every day, the energy around us, the places where we spend our time, the people we surround ourselves with, especially at work, because many times we spend more time with coworkers than with our own families. And that's where something begins to form a culture, a dynamic, an atmosphere. And all of that has an impact on how we live, how we how we feel, and how we treat others. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why meaningful work became so important to me. Not because any workplace is perfect, but because I wanted to feel that I was contributing to something, that people felt they were part of something human. Because when an environment is healthy, it changes you. But also when it's toxic, it changes you too. And I started questioning a lot of things. You know, the noise, the social media, our phones, the constant need to keep consuming something, comparing ourselves, running all the time. And sometimes I feel that we need to disconnect, step away from the noise, go for a walk, spend some time alone and truly listen to what's happening inside of us. Because if we never stop, we end up living on autopilot, like cruise control. And maybe that's why I say every now and then we need to ask ourselves, does the life I'm living today actually resemble the life I want? Does the life I'm living today actually resemble the life I really want? There was an experience that made me think deeply about all of this. Some time ago, I was part of a ceremony involving medicine plants. And for those who have experienced something similar, you understand the spiritual significance of or the lessons that can emerge during a ceremony. And I don't want to go into details or into myths or romanticize anything. To me, this was simply a personal experience. But I do remember a very specific vision that I had: a snake eating a jaguar, a huge snake eating a beautiful and powerful jaguar. And I heard a voice saying, no matter how powerful you are, or how powerful you think you are, eventually you will become nourishment for something. Make sure you're good nourishment. That sentence stayed with me. because even today it made me think, or it makes me think about what we leave behind when we pass through other people's life. What we leave behind in a team, in friendships, in relationships, in family. We won't connect with everyone. And I think that's part of life too. Every person is walking a different path with different experiences, different wounds, different values. Sometimes there are cultural differences, personalities, different worldviews, beliefs, religion, priorities, life experiences. And that doesn't necessarily mean someone is wrong. They're simply looking at life from a different place, from a different perspective. Over time, I also realized that not everyone is meant to stay. And we are not meant to deeply connect with everyone we meet. And that's okay. Because sometimes we feel guilty. Like we wonder if we did something wrong. We ask ourselves what we could have done differently. But often nothing went wrong at all. It simply wasn't meant to happen. There wasn't a hidden lesson. There wasn't a conflict to solve. There wasn't a mistake to fix. They were simply two different paths. And accepting that can actually be a form of peace because it allows us to appreciate the people who did connect with us, the ones who left something meaningful behind, the ones who shared part of the journey, and still keep trying to live something good, something nourishing, something that helps others grow, even if it's small. Maybe just a seed. Another important part of this journey is learning to let go. People, stages of life, routines, old versions of ourselves, even old dreams. And that's difficult, very, very difficult. Because sometimes we hold on onto things that have already ended. While preparing and thinking this episode, I remember something I mentioned in a previous podcast. Not everything you miss is something that you still need. And I still think about that a lot because it applies to so many things, not only relationships, but places, habits, again, old versions of ourselves. A while ago, I had the opportunity to return to a place where I once worked, a place that I really miss deeply. And when I got there, it felt different. It wasn't the same anymore. That's when something became clear. Maybe what we miss isn't the place itself. Maybe what we miss is who we were during that specific season of life. There's a saying that the place you miss or the place where you were happy is not a place you can return to. And it's because of that. Because places change, people change, and we change too. And that's not a bad thing. That's part of the journey. Sometimes the best way to honor something is to appreciate what we learn from it, what it made us feel, and keep walking. Because maybe the problem isn't missing something. Maybe the problem is living there forever. Another question came to mind. How many things do you still miss simply because they represent a version of you that no longer exists? I'll leave you with that. There are people, books, stories that make me think about all of this. For example, Anthony Bourdain. What always fascinated me about him was that he traveled the world, but he wasn't really talking about food. He was talking about people, culture, humanity. And I think he understood something important. We don't only remember places, we remember how certain people made us feel. Have you ever heard about this book, Siddhartha? It's a story about inner search and transformation, a person trying to understand himself through life itself. What is great about Siddhartha is that he goes through countless stages, different paths, different versions of himself, moments of abundance and moments of loss, and moments of doubt. And none of them define him completely, because the lesson wasn't about arriving quickly at an answer. The lesson was in the journey, listening, observing, making mistakes, changing, and continuing forward. And I think all of us are a little bit like that. People trying to understand who we really are while we keep walking. And in the end, I think pilgrimage is also about congruence. Because even though we shouldn't live depending on other people's opinion, the reality is that we are always influencing someone or being influenced by someone. Children, partners, co-workers, friends, teams, even people we don't realize are watching us, or in this case are listening to us. So maybe the question is in what people think about me. Maybe the real question is, does what I show on the outside resemble what I truly feel on the inside and the life I want to build? Does what I show on the outside resemble what I truly feel on the inside and the life I want to build? Maybe in the end, we're all pilgrims, passing through places, passing through people, leaving something behind, and taking something with us. And perhaps what matters most is in how long we stayed, but how we made people feel while our paths crossed. And maybe if we manage to leave something good behind, even something small, then the journey will have been worth it. Well, if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time, and thank you as well for giving some time to yourself. I'll see you in the next episode, and remember, everything is going to be okay.